Hi. So I'm here to share my path, my passion, my motivation. Why am I here on social media talking about signing with babies and what led me to this point that I finally found my purpose related to sign language. So, in this video, I will share my story and what happened for 10 years before I took my first class. I will tell you my history with sign and what influenced me and how I finally took a class. So I will share with you my steps through those years trying to find my purpose. So I always feel like I was led to sign language. Like it wasn't even my choice. It was just what was supposed to happen. For 10 years, I said again and again and again, like some of you maybe have said, I want to learn sign. I want to learn sign. I felt like I have to. I'm supposed to. It's part of my life. I know it. So maybe you guys have felt the same way. Fascinated. Yeah, it's a beautiful language. You hear that all the time. But I felt like I was supposed to. One of the life events that influenced me was I used to be an auto mechanic. Yes, I am very smart about cars, and I love cars, and I love driving. So I was a female mechanic, not widely accepted. Every day when I was working at a shop, people would come in the doors. They'd come in, they'd see me, a girl. I think I started working on cars in 1980. So I was 19 years old when I took my first class. And again, a girl mechanic, impossible. Still, it's ridiculous. But anyway, that's a different subject. So I was a mechanic. I was working at a shop. And one day, 4 guys came walking in the door right up to me. So the 4 of them must have figured out that I was more open and flexible. But I went outside to their car and we opened the hood and pointed and gestured and wrote notes and acted things out and did whatever we could to communicate their problem with their car. And I became their mechanic. And that was 1984. So that was the first time that I thought, I need to learn sign language. I want to learn. So there I was. I didn't do it. I wanted to. I talked about it, but I didn't do it. So that was those 4 guys that influenced me, started that desire. A while later, my husband and I were out for the evening and at a bar, and we met this deaf guy. And he was so fun. He was funny, he was smart, he was handsome, and he was great at communicating with us, even though we had no idea how to sign. My husband at that time was a really good artist, and this guy could draw too, so the 2 of them started drawing things, telling stories through pictures, just enjoying ourselves so much, laughing, and it was such a great night. And I remember asking him, okay, so you're handsome, you're smart, you're funny, you're all these things, why are you single? And he said, and I'll never forget, he said, I've never met a woman, not wife, a woman willing to learn my language. What? I remember thinking any woman that's not willing to learn how to communicate with you is stupid, because you seem like a really good guy. So that was another time that I thought, I wish I knew sign language, but I took no actions. It was life, you guys know. Did I have a kid at that time? No, that was before we had a kid, but married and working and life, and you just think, I want to, but I didn't do anything. Story of those 10 years. So fast forward to about 1989 or so. And my husband and I, we had moved to Oregon, and we were living in a very small town. And our next door neighbor had a son. He was a teenager. I think he was in high school, I'm not sure. But yeah, he was driving, so about there. And he was deaf. And I would see him once in a while, and I would always talk, because that's what you do. You say hi to your neighbor. You say, hi, how are you? And then you walk away feeling stupid because he's deaf and he couldn't hear you and whatever. So is that the fourth time? The 4 guys at the store, the guy at the bar, and no, this is the third one. So there he was. We lived next to them maybe a year or so, and I always felt like, I would get so frustrated and mad with myself for not learning sign language. So maybe I should add right now that my first husband was in the military. He was in the Coast Guard, and so we moved again. So we moved back to Washington State, to Port Angeles, which is out on the peninsula. You know, Washington State is shaped almost like a box, but it's got the little dip in here where all the islands are, and Puget Sound. Well, out here is Port Angeles, right across from Victoria, Canada. So we moved there, and we're going along, and we decide to have, we had the baby in Oregon. So my son was born in Oregon, and then we moved when he was getting close to 2. Now, I didn't know, I knew nothing about signing with babies, and that's such a regret, but I didn't know that, and that's part of why I'm here, because so many of you don't know about signing with babies, and that they can sign way before they can speak, and you just provide the language and they can tell you what they need and what they want, and not cry and fuss. So, little offshoot, here I come back. So the 3 of us are living in Port Angeles. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband is in the Coast Guard driving boats. And my son started a co-op preschool, which meant that the parents were involved. We all stayed and helped out and played with the kids. And they also would once in a while have somebody come and have a speech, something educational about raising kids, about child development. And one day an author showed up, and he had written a book about baby signs. I don't remember the name of the book, sorry, and I don't remember his name. Last name maybe Garcia, I think. Anyway, so he wrote this book about baby signs, and he had come to our preschool to just spread the word. So at that time, my son was already 3 and speaking just fine, and so I didn't have any use for the sign language with babies, but it really impacted me. I was like, wow. And his book, on the back of the book, it had a quote that said, "We condemn our children to an extra year of non-communication simply because their vocal cords have not developed." And that has stuck with me ever since. Again, we're talking 1993, and it's been with me forever. So I didn't start learning still. It was like, oh, I want to learn. I want, but never. When he's telling me his stories, he was talking about how his sons, I think he himself was hearing, the author, and he had, I'm remembering 2, no, not age 2, but 2 sons that had grown up signing, and the author was also an interpreter, if I'm remembering right. But so he talked about raising his sons with sign language and how it completely eliminated the terrible twos, that there was no reason for tantrums because they could communicate. What? Wow. Okay, so he talked about being out in stores and being able to, across the store way over there, tell them no, don't touch, or yes, you can get it, or whatever. But communicating from a distance, which is a beautiful thing. With kids, you don't have to yell, you don't have to run over there and stop them. You could just tell them, no, don't touch. Okay, so, and then the terrible twos are all about communication. Terrible twos, it's because we adults don't understand their little baby voices, vocalizations. We don't understand them. They know why they're crying. They know why they're throwing a fit. They know, but we don't understand. And that becomes the terrible twos. If they sign and we can understand them, the crying is greatly reduced. The crankiness, the screaming is all but gone because they can communicate. So that's the beginning of my story and how I felt fascinated and drawn to sign language and put it off because life. And so that's the beginning of my story. For the next video, I will talk about how I finally had the opportunity to go back to school and actually take a class. And I will talk about that experience, learning sign language, learning about kids that are deaf, and just so much information. So that'll be on the next video. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.